Glenn here. Now, in my studies, I've seen that there's a lot in the psychological literature and also as reported in popular media on the mental health and more general health benefits of forgiving. And I've skimmed some of that. I haven't really had a reason to delve deep into it, but at some point I will. But the truth is, I didn't need to read through all the peer-reviewed evidence to know that forgiveness is really good for you. I know it is. My father was, sometimes at least, a violent drunk. Not all the time, but more than often enough to have a seriously negative impact in shaping my relationship with him. Not a good thing for a young man. And yeah, it was a genuinely awful experience. I've never been drunk my whole life. Some people might have a hard time believing that, but it happens to be true. Ask anyone who knows me. I've also never raised a hand to a woman. You are not at all doomed to become your father or your mother. It's not inevitable, and it's not an excuse. And I'm also sure, quite certain, that the most powerful force in maintaining a healthy relationship with my past is forgiveness. It's the exercise of grace. Forgiveness is an act of letting go. That's a metaphor when we say that, but it is very much like the physical act of letting go of something that was heavy or something that was burning, something that was causing you pain to hold on to, even though you might have at one point been quite determined to really hold on to it. Forgiveness is not compatible with downplaying something or saying that it didn't happen or it wasn't really that terrible after all. That's not forgiveness. That's excusing. Forgiveness doesn't say, that's okay, don't worry about it. Forgiveness starts with acknowledging evil as evil. You know, some people would actually be offended if you showed up on their doorstep and told them that you had forgiven them, because that would suppose that they'd done something in the first place that they shouldn't have done. You might instinctively want to say, she doesn't deserve it, or he doesn't deserve my forgiveness. And you're right. Forgiveness isn't like that. Forgiveness is not something that you owe to people because they've earned it and now you must forgive them. It isn't like that. That's what makes it forgiveness. In forgiveness, you release somebody from a debt. And in the process, you release yourself as well. Think about the alternative of holding on tight to that thing that's burning your hands and refusing to release it until somebody else says the right words. Somebody else utters exactly the right formula that you've been waiting for them to say so that you can justify letting go. I mean, if that's what you want to do, that's your choice, but think about what you're doing. My ability to forgive my father and to maintain that forgiveness over time was helped just immeasurably by my own acknowledgement that I need forgiveness, acknowledgement of my own imperfections in so many ways. We're all broken. Him more than me, I'm sure. But it's not just a cliche. It is the truth when we say that hurt people hurt people. Because I forgave my father, and I told him so clearly, and it was pretty early on. I was 19 or 20. I was a young guy. Because I did that, I was able to have a relationship with him. I'd even like to think that in some small measure, my having that relationship with him was a force for good in his life after my parents' marriage had come to an end. Now, of course, there are still things that I'm not happy about. I wish that he had lived differently. But I can't do anything about that. It's outside of my power. I wish he was still here, but again, that's just outside of my power. I can't do anything about it. But one thing I will never have to look back and wish is that I had done this differently. I can't imagine what it would have been like. I suppose I can imagine, and it's not good. Standing at his coffin at his funeral, telling him finally that I forgave him when it was too late and he couldn't hear me, knowing that I could have done that earlier. I won't have to live with that. Because I forgave him, I hope that in doing so, I model forgiveness to my children who are now adults and who, I hope, actually I'm fairly sure, will forgive me for my shortcomings as a father. And look, I know that there are plenty of those, even if I didn't become my dad. I'm absolutely convinced that, I was going to say the best way, but no, actually the only way to break cycles like this includes grace, which makes it possible, instead of going from bad to worse, going at least from good to better, to healthier, to more whole. There's one more thing that I'm sure of. I'm quite sure that my forgiving my father and gaining that appreciation of the power of grace, of not being consumed, not being twisted or destroyed by the wrong done by others, has meant that there are far fewer things, although still some, for which my children need to forgive me. That's what I think.